I thought you had him. I thought you had him. I glanced around the room, my heart pounding. Danny? I called. Danny, where are you? Silence. Calm down. He's around here somewhere. Our house wasn't even that big. Yet somehow, our 6-year-old son was always disappearing. Sometimes I'd find him in one of the lower kitchen cabinets. Camping, he called it, pretending the cabinet was his tent and one of his fake fire lanterns was the campfire. Other times I'd find him hiding in the closet, opening all his boxes of old toys and too small clothing, throwing it all over the place just because. Okay, you search upstairs, I'll search down. Danny. I shouted. Geez, relax. He's probably just playing with his Legos. Or hiding in the closet again. Or drowning himself in the bathtub. My husband sighed, then started up the stairs. I went into full-on mommy panic mode. I ran over to the family room, empty. Kitchen, empty. Then. Fuck. There he was. Through the sliding glass door, I could see him. He was out in the yard. Or, at least, I saw his fake fire lantern. It bobbed up and down at the far end of the backyard. All the way down by the tree line. How did he get down there so quickly? I threw the door open. Danny. I shouted. Get back here, right now. The lantern stilled. Hanging just a few feet over the soft grass. I couldn't quite make out his small form, his little hand clutched over the lantern's handle. Danny. He didn't move. Damn it. I burst out of the house, barefoot. My feet slid over the cold, wet grass. Danny. As I started gaining on him, he started moving. The lantern bobbed with each of his little steps. Getting further away from me. Going into the woods. Danny. Miranda. I skidded to a stop. Turned around. My husband poked his head out the back door. Found him. He shouted to me. He's upstairs with his Legos. I froze. Looked back into the forest. The lantern hung in the air, not 10 feet away. The soft, fake firelight flickering. And beside it, a figure that I could barely make out through the trees. What the? I turned around and hightailed it back inside. I ended up calling the police. The person holding the lantern was clearly too short to be an adult. What if the child had gotten lost and wandered into our yard? They told me there were no missing children in the area, and a quick search brought up nothing in the woods, either. Are you sure it was a kid? They'd asked. And honestly, I couldn't tell them I was sure. It was a dark, moonless night. I'd only assumed it was Danny because of the lantern. So I forgot about it, for a few days. But then, on Thursday night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to pee. And when I glanced out the window, there it was. Hovering just about 10 feet from our back door. Kevin. Kevin, wake up, I said, shaking him. There's someone out there. I threw on my clothes and poked my head into Danny's room. Then I crept down the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. Kevin followed behind. But when we got to the kitchen, the lantern light was no longer so close. It was about halfway down our backyard, near the garden. It's back. That's what I was telling the police about, I whispered. I watched as it floated in the darkness, just a few feet from the ground. Absolutely still. Like it was waiting. Waiting for me to follow it. Should we call the police? I whispered. Kevin gave a sigh. And even though he didn't say anything, I knew exactly what it meant. You're overreacting again. This feels like a prank, he said, finally. Some kid stealing our lanterns and taunting us. It doesn't feel that way to me. What if it's a lost kid? The cop said there weren't any kids missing in the area. He reached for the door. I'll just go out there and tell them off. You can't go out there. Why not? It's just a kid. I bit my lip as he slid the door open and walked out into the night. I watched his shadow walk into the yard, then stop. Hey, you, he called out. I'm going to call your parents and tell them you're out here. Silence. You hear me? Get out of here. The light bobbed. And then it started coming towards him. My blood turned to ice. I wrenched open the door. Kevin. Kevin, get in here. For a moment, he hesitated. And then he turned around and ran as fast as he could. As soon as he got inside, he slid the door closed with all his might. Locked it. Yanked the string to make the blinds cover it. It's not the kid. My breath caught in my throat. I immediately imagined some horrible monster, some golem-like creature crawling around our yard with our lantern. But what my husband said was far, far worse. "It's a man," he said, barely able to catch his breath. His wide eyes locked on mine, and I could see the terror in them. "It's a man walking around on all fours." www.reddit.com web link. I'm trapped in a perpetual Groundhog Day, but it's more than a day. The world feels a little grislier with every reset. I've always known that some sort of higher power was the architect of my eternal torture. What other explanation could there be? But I no longer simply know of that power. I've seen it. Let me rewind. I'm used to doing that, after all. I don't know how many times I've relived the past 2 decades. Enough times to slowly go insane. I've done some crazy shit in a manic attempt to break free. I actually thought I could end the cycle by altering the course of the future. During the present iteration, I haven't really bothered. I'm tired. So, you're experiencing the natural course of events, I suppose. Let's just say there was an iteration in which I invested wisely, became a billionaire, and spent my riches on changing the landscape of the world. I even paid extraordinary amounts of money to scientists who promised they could uncover the secrets of the universe. I thought they could fix whatever had happened to me. The problem is that I don't think they ever truly believed my story. They didn't really try to understand how a time loop would work, so their research was half-hearted. Nobody has ever been able to save me. And, before anybody asks, death is not the answer. It just resets the loop. I find myself waking up on the morning of December 31st, 1999. I celebrate the commencement of a new millennium with my family, and we admire the fireworks. At this point, of course, I've probably lived for a millennium. The horror of waking up in my 13-year-old body with a 36-year-old mind never fades. Or maybe I'm 3,600 years old, eh? Who knows? I'm certainly not counting. Anyway, I always detest reliving those teenage years. I pretend to be a normal kid and blend in with my peers. A few months after the first reset, I managed to calm myself down and seize the opportunity to make better decisions. Maybe it's a second chance, I decided. I took care of my health. I married the same girl, but I was a better husband and managed to prevent the divorce. I spent more time with our kids. I was a better version of myself. As December 31st of 2022 approached for the second time, I thought I'd done what the universe wanted me to do. You can imagine my unbridled terror when the loop reset. And that's when the penny dropped. I'm stuck. Madness ensued. 4 resets later, I tried killing myself. That didn't work. I tried hundreds of times in hundreds of ways. No luck. So, I've given up and resigned myself to this hellish existence. During every fresh iteration, however, I do try something new. I have to attempt to save myself, right? This time, I've posted about my experience on Reddit. That's new. I'm reaching out for help. Maybe I haven't fully given up, eh? I might say otherwise, but my actions speak louder than my words. I mean, I have to be honest. I've never gone completely wild. I've never completely ruined my life. I've stripped naked and run through the local park, but I've never, say, robbed a bank. I can't risk doing something life-destroying. What if the loop has ended? Every time I reach December of this year, I start to wonder that. It's what keeps me from entirely unhinging and doing something foolish. I don't want to endure this infinite torture. I guess I still believe that I can break free of the cycle. I believe in January 1st, 2023. I'm sure all of you will see it. Surely, when that day arrives, I'll have discovered a way to move beyond the loop. Eventually, I have to make it to next year, right? What's the alternative? I can't seem to die, after all. Well, that's what I used to believe. After a certain number of resets, I began to notice something disquieting. It started during one particular December of 2022. I noticed something watching me. It always happens during this final month. For instance, I might stroll down the road and catch glimpses of something in my peripheral vision. On street corners, I've seen a man with eyes that have no pupils. That's not all. I've heard things that other people say they can't hear. There are shushing noises with no source. I wake up in the night, bathing in a pool of sweat, assured that I've spotted glassy pinpricks in the darkness. Sometimes, they rapidly vanish, as if the thing has closed its eyelids to avoid detection. Other times, the eyes linger, hovering in front of me. The thing seems to be getting bolder, and that haunts me. Last week, I was in an art gallery, and I saw a terrifying painting. My wife and friends said it was beautiful. They couldn't comprehend why I suddenly had a gold complexion. I suppose it would seem like an odd reaction. After all, the painting simply depicted an ordinary man. But I felt as if I'd take a stroll through the uncanny valley. His eyes were dreadful. Something about him was marginally off. And, for the briefest moment, the gallery light caught the painted eyes in such a way that the pupils disappeared. I found myself staring into the vacant eyes from various street corners and my darkened bedroom. They were boring into my skull. I whimpered in terror. The worst part is that I've been to the art exhibit before. On December 10, 2022, my wife and friends always drag me there. That painting wasn't there in any of the previous iterations of this loop. In that exact spot, there had been a painting of Big Ben proudly displaying 11 o'clock. And that's something which petrifies me. It means things are changing, and I don't think they're changing for the better. I have considered letting go. My fight is fading. Perhaps I should embrace the entity with open arms. Perhaps it has come to release me from this nightmare. It could offer a finite death and put an end to the loop. But what if it delivers a worse fate? Every time I see the glassy-eyed man, I feel my chest coil into a clove hitch. He isn't good. He isn't trying to save me. I need to figure out how to reach January 1, 2023.